Let's talk away from politics. Nigeria's National Sovereign Cloud Initiative, led by the National Information Technology Development Agency, is a strategic effort to strengthen the country's digital sovereignty by ensuring that critical government and sensitive citizen data are securely hosted and governed within Nigeria. The initiative goes beyond simply building data centers. It seeks to reduce Nigeria's heavily dependence on foreign digital infrastructure, strengthening cybersecurity, improve government control over sensitive information, and create a more coordinated national cloud ecosystem. Now, joining us for this conversation is a DG, National Information Technology Development Agency, Kashifo Inuwa. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on TVC Breakfast Saturday.
Thank you for having me.
Can you give us an overview of this national broadband initiative that we are talking about at the moment, the cloud development?
So it's a cloud sovereignty, or we call it digital sovereignty. This reform is deeply rooted in President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's Nigeria's First policy. And also, if you remember, on assuming office, the president made it clear that driving national inclusivity and prosperity are paramount to his renewed hope agenda. And President articulated 8 priority areas to achieve that vision, with priority number 7 specifically focused on accelerating diversification through digitalization and innovation. So based on that, we look at what is the backbone of digital economy and transformation. Is the infrastructure. When you talk about infrastructure, it's the connectivity and compute power. Because our life today, our economy, our society, everything depends on this technology. So the initiative is about we as a nation building our capacity for digital self-determination. How can we as a nation make meaningful choices about technologies on which our society and economy depends? And how can we retain capacity and capability to execute that choices?
All right. You mentioned data sovereignty. I want to ask, what does Nigeria gain by storing its data in Nigeria?
So what we are talking about is beyond just storing data in Nigeria. Let me give you an example. Today we are building systems that our economy and society depends on. For example, think about MoneyPoint or OPay. Almost everybody makes payment through that. So imagine that data, the system is stored somewhere and there is a submarine cable cut. Won't be able to use it at all. And we are digitizing our healthcare services. Just recently, the president established Office of Health Technology and Data Analytics Office to digitalize our healthcare. We are going to be building systems that will save lives. And if you have that system sitting somewhere outside the country, and when there are issues, we won't be able to access it. And beyond that, we should be able to build those systems ourselves and be able to support it locally.
Now, this things you're talking about really sounds great, you know. It really sounds great, but I'm looking at the economics of it. Do we have the infrastructure to do it right, as it is right now in Nigeria? And if that's not the case, the presidential initiative, does it allow the kind of funding that we need to put those infrastructure that we need, you know, within Nigeria? One of the biggest problems we have as far as connectivity is concerned is speed. Do we have the funding? Do we have the backing to ensure that the infrastructure that we build within Nigeria can sustain the dream?
So the initiative is not about Nigeria closing its doors against foreign technologies, but it's about asking them to come and build with us. Locally, we are investing hugely on building the infrastructure. The president approved Project Bridge, which is about rolling 90,000 kilometers of fiber optics around the country to connect all the unconnected. And we are getting investments. The World Bank, the European investment, and many more are coming to build that. Then also, when it comes to building the compute power also, we are coming up with a policy and regulatory clarity and certainty for the foreign hyperscalers to come and build with us. So we are creating the demand locally. We have the strategy, which is clear about how to make the business to grow. The strategy is talking about the policy clarity, where government has agreed that it will adopt cloud-first strategy. That means as an MDAs, we will discourage governments to be building data centers or server rooms, but they should go to cloud. The president already approved a joint committee between NIDA, Budget Office, and all regulators to come up with a fiscal policy that will harmonize all government spendings on technology to push for this. Based on the data we have from 2023 to date, government invested more than 3.8 trillion naira in IT infrastructure. Imagine channeling that investment into building the local capacity. And this is creating the demand and assure those foreign investors when they build data centers in Nigeria, they will have tenants. Government is there, and also regulated institutions. Like the Central Bank of Nigeria issued a policy that banks and fintech should bring back the financial transaction data back to the country. So this has already opened that investment opportunity.
Interesting. These big tech industries or companies that you mentioned, do they get waivers when they come to the country to invest in Nigeria? Talking about data, how far have we gone when we don't have enough backups that we can quickly click on and get information? Things will happen in the country, you'll still be wondering, there are no data analysis concerning what has transpired. How far have we gone on data analysis in Nigeria? Two questions there.
Yeah. So the initiative is looking at it end to end, the whole stack, from the infrastructure, the compute, the innovation and local content creation, as well as investment and funding. So when you have that clarity on what to build, and also you catalyze the local innovation and tech ecosystem to build, you create more demands. So we look at it from the perspective of building and digitalizing services. For example, Nigeria has been a center for fintech. That didn't happen by accident. It was by design because of government policies on cashless society, CBN's policy on building, switching infrastructure like NIPS and so on. That what get birth to the fintech industry. Today, the president has set up Office for Health Tech, which will give birth to the health tech industry. We are looking at agri-tech, we are looking at gov-tech, we are looking at ed-tech and so on. So putting all this together, you create that demands. And when it comes to the data itself, Nigeria, we have the highest submarine cables landing in the West Africa. We are already gateway to the African West and Central Africa. And also the new investment government is doing in terms of connectivity also is creating more demands. So sometimes it's not about that we don't have the data or the infrastructure, but the perception, how people perceive our own infrastructure, our own capacity to build at scales. So we have a framework for digital infrastructure assurance, which will take the companies through certifications and licensing. We are starting with the data centers infrastructure providers, which they will go through certification process to be certified for hyperscalers to come and co-locate with them. Then we have a certification for cloud service providers.
Okay.
That could be hyperscalers, the big techs, or a local cloud service provider as well, because we encourage the local to build the capacity. Then we also have a certification track for cloud service aggregators or system integrators. Those are the ones that will be going to organizations, banks, to help them build digital offerings as well as migrate back to the country. So that will build the confidence that Nigerians have that capacity to build. Then we also have a certification route for software testing, quality assurance, system designs, and so on. Because the way it is today, we build without all this standardization and certification. That's why we always complain that our services are not good.
So, sorry, just before, Banker, before you ask your question, I made mention of waivers because I read in some of your write-up that there's a 2-year waiver for some of these big tech companies. You didn't tell us that.
Okay, so the waiver started in 2019 when we had the Cloud First policy. The intention was to have a roadmap for them to come and build in Nigeria, but they keep pushing for the waiver. Now, Mr. President has come with the Nigeria's First policy. That's why we had to work again on that to say it's not about waiver, it's about you having a clear roadmap. How many years do you need to come and build your infrastructure? CBN has already set a deadline. By 1st January, banks must bring back data to Nigeria. That means these big techs now, they have from now to 1st January to make sure they can keep sovereign data in Nigeria.
Okay, Mr. Inowa, in the previous question that Mr. Edo asked you, you spoke about investors like the World Bank coming to invest in the building of this infrastructure. I want to ask how much of this infrastructure is going to be truly owned by Nigeria? And also, you've spoken about the certification, but as a normal Nigerian, and I'm sure that the people watching at home will be asking, so what is the economic value? So 2 questions.
So I think in terms of how much will be owned by foreign, Nigeria is an open market, and President the reform is about a private-led but government-enabled economy. So I don't think we are mindful about how much, who control what, but what we are more interested, let it be built in Nigeria. If Nigerians can build it 100%, fine. If we can bring others to build together, fine. But what we are saying, we are not just closing our doors. We are also positioning ourselves to become the West and Central Africa digital gateway. And when you are building also, it's not just about building in one location. We are working on designing digital triangles, because when you are building technology, you need to build it with the business continuity in mind. You need to have like redundancy, disaster recovery, and so on. So at least you should have 3 locations where you situate this data center estates to connect them, and then we have like edge connections around other states. Because as we digitalize, as we integrate AI into our operations, we need to have AI compute power edge across all states for retraining the AI model.
Definitely, I hear you. But however, let's say something happens, something negative happens, or let me come from this point of view. Who is going to be in charge of administrating this this data initiative? is going to be in charge of it? Because you have mentioned that you're not really mindful of the fact that, other private people can come and give private investment. What you want is that it should be in Nigeria. But we all know that not everything in Nigeria is owned by Nigeria and Nigerians. What if something happens and then there is a form of conflict? What's going to happen then? Who is controlling this?
So the regulatory instrument is the one that will control it. It's about legal framework. We've already issued the regulatory guidelines, how to build, how to keep it, how to control it, the data classification, which data must stay in country, which data can go into the public cloud. So it's the same thing like in every sector, a regulated sector is the law that control. So, but what we are saying, the way it is today, we don't have that operational sovereignty or control over the data, and sometimes we don't even have judicial control over it. Something can happen, the data is not in the country, you cannot use Nigerian laws to apply on it.
So when these investors come and we encourage them to build, we go into a partnership with them, because what I see is that you're calling for partnership for the development of this infrastructure and all that. I always hope that those tiny agreements we have before something like that happens favors Nigeria. And I guess that's what my colleague Banker is trying to say. If something happens, and let's say a French company builds the biggest one that is storing the largest amount of data, they have control over that data. Or are we saying that Nigeria is the one that has control over the data for the infrastructure that they built?
So, the way we are moving is towards supervisory technology. Okay. When you talk about control, is when the regulator is blind, doesn't see the data. But we have a regulatory instrument. We said you must bring the data in Nigeria. We see the data. The data is sitting in Nigeria, then Nigerians' laws apply to that data. You cannot take that data outside Nigeria without our knowledge.
But they might have the power to lock the data.
If it is in Nigeria, you can't lock it because, for example, NEPA or the GENCOs, you have a right as a citizen to give you light. They cannot come and just disconnect you because they don't like your face, unless if you do something wrong.
Yeah.
So the law is there. The market is a free market, but the market obeys the laws.
Nigeria has had, on several occasions, had issues with regulation, with oversight functions. So you wouldn't blame me if I am sounding very worried about this side of the thing. We do not have a beautiful record as far as oversight is concerned, as far as regulation is concerned. Are we embedding our oversight functions in these deals or these partnerships that we're going to have with whoever? And as an agency, how is your relationship with the private sector on this issue?
So, in terms of the supervisory role, we are embedding everything end to end, from the connectivity, the last mile, to the processing and so on. Okay. And we have laws that guide everything. We have the Nigerian Data Protection Commission. We have the Nigerian Data Protection Act, which is a law that enforce them to give that visibility of especially the personal data and so on. Then we have a sub-legislation on data classification, data governance, and so on. So as you build the certification is to make sure you meet all these requirements before you even get a certification to operate. And there is going to be like a regulatory oversight. In addition to that, we'll have visibility to it. Then the second questions
Is as an agency, you know, how is your relationship with the private sector?
Okay, so we have reinvented our social contract with the private sector. It took us time to build that trust. Before, mostly they sit by the side and blame government. But now, when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came and issued directive that we should build the enabling environment, we can no longer sit in the office, use armchair theory to come up with regulation. We co-create and co-design these regulations. So we started like 2 years ago by setting a committee with all hyperscalers, all big techs in Nigeria are part of that committee, and all local data center providers are part of that committee. We have technical and policy committee. They worked for 2 years to come up with this draft document after we had a socialization with the wider stakeholders. We carried every stakeholder along. Then after that, we signed it into law. So everybody has been part of it, they contributed, and now Minister has issued a policy in addition to the regulatory instruments we sign, which we are establishing a SovGov, Sovereign Cloud Council, Governance Council, which will be the decision-making body.
Absolutely. So how will the youth in Nigeria also benefit in this great initiative? And will this also close the infrastructural gap that we have in the country?
So our youths are digital native. Absolutely. All these initiatives is about them. They are the ones that consume these services. They are the ones that build it. So this is building the enabling environments for them to build for Nigeria, not just for Nigeria, build and scale it to the world. We have seen the example of MoneyPoint, Flutterwave, Andela, and so on, where they started in Nigeria, but they have gone globally. So we want to see more of this, not just in fintech, in health tech, ed tech, in AI native solutions. So we really have that track for them. That's why one of the pillars in the strategy is talent development.
Absolutely.
How can we build the talent and our youths have the capacity to build the offer?
I hope with this fintech that we have in the country that when you are being swindled by unscrupulous individuals, that data can bring that person out in less than 24 hours. And the person can be trapped.
I'm talking about 24 seconds.
24 seconds. Director General, National Information Technology Development Agency, Kashifo Inuwa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you
on
for
TVC
having me.
Breakfast Saturday.